Recently, the vice president claimed that slavery was so bad that a slave could never have learned a skill that might have helped that person after leaving slavery. Today on Abbreviated Bios, we're going to learn about Robert Smalls, who not only learned skills as a slave, but some of his skills directly helped him escape slavery. Hi, I'm Stephen Yoder. Robert Smalls was born on April 5th, 1839 in the town of Beaufort, South Carolina, to Lydia Smalls and a white man. Most speculation is that his master, John McKee, was his father. Robert appeared to be the favorite of all the slaves and given some education. Lydia, however, wanted to make sure he knew the horrors of slavery. She got him sent to the fields to witness whippings. Robert became pretty defiant after this experience and often ended up in the Beaufort jail. Robert was later sent to Charleston to be hired out for work. He was allowed to keep $1 per week and the rest went to his master, John McKee. Some of the jobs he performed were lamplighter, stevedore foreman, sailmaker, rigger, and sailor. Smalls became an expert navigator of the South Carolina and Georgia coasts. Robert married Hannah Jones in 1856. She was the daughter of a slave couple that helped run a hotel in Charleston. They had 3 children together, Elizabeth, Robert Jr., and Sarah. Robert Jr. died of smallpox at age 2. Hannah would die in 1883. Since he was allowed to earn some money, Smalls sought to purchase himself and his family out of slavery. The price was so impossibly high that Smalls began to plot a different way. In 1861, the Confederacy forced Smalls to be a crew member of the steamship the Planter, a cotton steamer that had been turned into an ammunition transport ship. While a member of the crew, Smalls recruited most of the other slaves and his families to be ready if the right moment to escape came. The opportunity came on the evening of May 12, 1862, when the white officers of the Planter decided to spend the evening ashore. They trusted the black crew members that much. The ship was still fully armed with 200 rounds of ammo for the 32-pound pivot gun, 24-pound howitzer, and 4 other guns. Smalls was the wheelman on the ship. He sent word to his family and others to meet at a rendezvous. Smalls put on the captain's wide-brimmed straw hat to hide his face. During the night, he steamed through the harbor. He responded with all of the correct signals at Confederate checkpoints, including Fort Sumter. After passing that fort, he had a crew member run up a white flag. Smalls surrendered his ship to the USS Onward. Smalls stated while presenting his ship to Lieutenant Frederick Nichols, "Good morning, sir. I've brought some of the old United States guns, sir." Smalls and his crew had escaped with 17 black passengers, 9 men, 5 women, and 3 children. Smalls told the Union commander of the Confederate shipping routes, the mine locations, and the times Confederate ships docked. Admiral Samuel Francis DuPont wrote to the Navy Secretary praising Smalls' intelligence. Smalls became the first African-American hero of the war. The Confederacy put a $4,000 bounty on Smalls' head. At Secretary of War Edwin Stanton's encouragement, Smalls began recruiting blacks to join the U.S. military. It is said that he recruited some 5,000 soldiers. The U.S. government bought the Planter and awarded a $1,500 bounty to Smalls. After the war, Smalls would buy his former master's house with the money. Robert Smalls then joined the U.S. Navy and was assigned to the Planter as the pilot, part of Admiral DuPont's South Atlantic blockading squadron. He took part in 17 actions during the war. In June of 1863, Smalls took command under fire when the captain cowardly hid in the coal bunker during the battle. Smalls was promoted to captain in December and given command of the Planter. He held the post until September 1866, when the ship was taken out of service. Smalls began getting involved in politics during the war. In 1864, while in Philadelphia, he was arrested for riding in a segregated streetcar. Smalls organized a successful boycott, which eventually led Philadelphia to desegregate its transit system in 1867. Beginning in 1864, Smalls attended 8 of the next 11 national conventions as a delegate from South Carolina. Smalls served as a delegate to the South Carolina Constitutional Convention of 1868. All the seceding states had to rewrite their constitutions. He was elected to the State House of Representatives from 1868 to 1870, then in the State Senate from 1870 to 1874. In 1874, he was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives with 80% of the vote. He was put on the Agriculture Committee. He obtained appropriations to improve Port Royal Harbor and helped gain money for Charleston's military academy. He failed in his attempt to desegregate the U.S. Army. During the 1876 election, Smalls argued against removing troops from the South. He argued the red shirt militias would make war on the South Carolina government and freedmen. He called the presence of federal troops as the only way to, I quote, cut off that rotten part all around South Carolina, so as to let the core stand. It is those rotten parts which are troubling us. We are getting along all right ourselves. Smalls barely defeated George Tillman in the election with 52% of the vote. The newly Democrat state government in South Carolina charged Smalls with accepting a $5,000 bribe while in the South Carolina Senate. He was arrested in Beaufort and convicted and sentenced to 3 years. He was jailed for 3 days but released after Republicans protested. Meanwhile, the racist Democrat George Tillman challenged Smalls' election. The Democrat-led Committee on Elections in the House ruled in Tillman's favor, but the whole House refused to take it up. Smalls kept his House seat. In 1878, Tillman defeated Smalls with 71% of the vote because of that issue. Smalls was pardoned in 1879 by Democratic Governor Simpson in a deal where the U.S. Attorney dropped charges on South Carolina Democrats charged with violating election laws in 1876. In 1880, Smalls won 40% of the vote but protested Tillman's election and was declared the winner by the House of Representatives over election violence. In 1882, Smalls supported Edmund Mackey in the one gerrymandered Republican district left in South Carolina. Mackey died in 1884 and Smalls won the special election. He won the district easily in November. Smalls got a bill passed to provide a pension for General David Hunter's widow Maria, but it was vetoed by President Cleveland. Smalls married his second wife, Annie Wigg, in 1890. Their son, William Robert Smalls, was born in 1892. Annie unfortunately died in 1895. Robert Smalls was one of 6 black delegates to the South Carolina Constitutional Convention of 1895. He spoke against the delegates' plans to disfranchise blacks from the voter rolls and limiting black civil rights. He stated, "My race needs no special defense from the past history of them and this country. It proves them to be equal of any people anywhere. All they need is an equal chance in the battle of life." The other delegates ignored him and stripped blacks of most of their rights. Smalls was appointed by President Benjamin Harrison to be collector of the port of Beaufort in 1889 and held it until 1893 when Grover Cleveland became president again. He was reappointed in 1898 by President McKinley and held the job until Woodrow Wilson, the racist Democrat, became president in 1913. Robert Smalls died in Beaufort, South Carolina, in his master's former home on February 23, 1915. Robert Smalls became the first black hero of the Civil War by parlaying his skills gained as a slave to make his escape. He then became a skillful politician who managed to survive the violent politics of Reconstruction South Carolina. He is someone all Americans can look up to. Thank you for listening to Abbreviated Bios.